On the 630th day of the war in Ukraine, the fighting was concentrated in these areas. In Kherson front, heavy battles were reported near the village of Krynky, where during the last 24 hours the Russian forces attacked on both sides of the settlement, intensifying their efforts to capture the Ukrainian bridgehead across the Dnipro river. According to geolocated footage, Russian DRG units advanced through the western side of the village and started entering near the Ukrainian-controlled areas, where they encountered resistance from the Ukrainian defenders. Drone units of the 37th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Army targeted and destroyed the Russian forces who were trying to take cover inside some buildings about 400 meters away from the Ukrainian foothold. Ukrainian Marines took the failed Russian attack as an opportunity to storm the areas to the west of their positions, expanding by several hundred meters their control over the western part of the settlement. On the eastern side of Krynky, the Russian army attacked with at least 2 tanks and infantry forces and tried to push into the central part of the village. However, Ukrainian forces put up a fierce resistance, and during the clashes they damaged one of the Russian tanks, and by using FPV drones they caused heavy casualties to the Russian infantry forces. For the moment, the situation in Kherson front remains tense as the Russian army is using a lot of resources trying to put an end to the Ukrainian threat in Krynky, not allowing Ukrainians to further expand their bridgehead. On the other hand, according to reports from Russian sources like Warganzo, Ukrainians are also probing the Russian defenses near Poima, looking for weak spots that they can exploit to create another bridgehead on the Russian-controlled bank and force the Russian command to deploy a part of their forces in this direction, thus easing the pressure on the Ukrainian forces in Krynky. The Ukrainian army continues to track and destroy concentrations of the Russian forces in the rear. After attacking a large Russian convoy south of Oleshki a few days ago, causing over 45 casualties to the Russian forces, today Ukrainian sources published footage of other strikes that the Ukrainian forces carried out over 35 kilometers behind the line of contact. According to Ukrainian sources, the Ukrainian Air Force carried out at least 2 JDAM strikes over a concentration of Russian infantry forces in the village of Andriivka, causing heavy casualties to the Russian army. In Donetsk front, battles continue in the Andriivka sector. According to the Ukrainian source Deep State Map, during the last 24 hours, Russian forces managed to advance about 2 square kilometers north of Stepove, taking some tree-line positions in this direction. Ukrainian forces carried out counterattacks over the Russian positions northeast of Stepove, causing a lot of casualties to the Russian troops and forcing them to abandon some of their positions near the railway. Ukrainian drone operators targeted the Russian forces on their positions along the tree lines and trenches northeast of Stepove, depleting the Russian forces and not allowing them to build up a considerable presence for the expected upcoming attacks over the Ukrainian settlement. After the destruction of numerous Russian electronic warfare systems about 20 kilometers east of Andriivka, Ukrainian forces maintained the edge in the drone warfare, as the geolocated footage proves that during the past few days, Ukrainian forces have been able to freely strike behind the Russian lines, destroying many trucks and artillery systems by flying their drones as far as 20 kilometers away from the line of contact. In Bakhmut front, battles were reported north of Soledar and east of Bogdanivka on the northern part of the front line, as well as north of Klishivka and east of Andriivka on the southern part. Yesterday, Ukrainian sources declared that due to the increasing pressure of the Russian army northwest of Bakhmut, the Ukrainian forces withdrew from an area of about 2.5 square kilometers in this direction and moved east, establishing a new defensive line in a more favorable ground. Taking advantage of the higher ground and the extensive system of trenches which are built on this area, Ukrainian forces will have it easier to deal with the Russian offensive towards the west. On the other hand, the Ukrainian command also reactivated their forces on the northern part of the front as the 30th Mechanized Brigade started to attack the Russian positions north of Soledar, aiming to force the Russian command to deploy a part of their forces in the defense of the northern flank. In Klishivka sector, Ukrainian forces stopped all the Russian attempts to enter into the village, and at the same time Ukrainians crossed the railway southeast of the village of Andriivka and repelled the Russian armored assault east of the village, not allowing the Russian forces to develop any further success in this direction. Friends, if you like my daily updates, I kindly ask you to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as this will greatly help the channel to reach a wider audience. That's all for today's update. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and have a great day.